This World is Not Conclusion by Emily Dickinson, 1830 to 1886. This world is not conclusion. A species stands beyond, invisible as music, but positive as sound. It beckons and it baffles. Philosophy don't know. And through a riddle at the last, sagacity must go. To guess it puzzles scholars. To gain it men have borne contempt of generations and crucifixion shown. Faith slips and laughs and rallies, blushes if any see, plucks at a twig of evidence and asks of Vane the way. Much gesture from the pulpit, strong hallelujahs roll. Narcotics cannot still the tooth that nibbles at the soul. So this is a poem by Emily Dickinson. Emily Dickinson was an American poet from Amherst, Massachusetts. She came from a family that was quite important within the small community that she lived in. She was not a famous poet during her lifetime, and she was a recluse. She didn't like people visiting, she didn't like receiving guests, and I think many of the people from the community considered her a little bit strange. Her poetry wasn't published during her lifetime, and it was only much later that she became famous as one of the most important American poets. So, what's this poem about? Well, this world is not conclusion. So I think the title says it all, or this is the first line, because she never puts titles to her poems. It's saying that the world that we live in, this is not the end. There is a world beyond death. A species stands beyond. So there is something beyond the world that we live in. There is an afterlife, a spiritual life after death. And this is really what the poem is talking about. She's thinking about it. She's wondering about the evidence for it, the evidence against it, the way humans deal with it. Invisible as music, but positive as sound. So she's saying music is something that is invisible. The beauty of music is not something that you can see, but the sound of music, yes, this is something that you know is there. So this is her first metaphor for life after death, that this is something that is invisible, but is invisible like music, but it's definitely there. It beckons and it baffles. Philosophy don't know. So the afterlife is calling you, is beckoning you, but it confuses you. It's confusing, and philosophy can't understand it. So you can try all of the philosophy that you want, but it's not something that philosophy can define. And through a riddle, at the last, sagacity must go. And this is such a conundrum, such a riddle, such a complex thing, that sagacity, being wise, thinking about it, is not something that you can work out. You can't be wise and say it exists because this and this and this. This is a question of perhaps belief, or this feeling inside you. To guess it puzzles scholars. So to guess at the afterlife is something that scholars have thought about, but they can't pin it down. They can't show that it exists. Scholars have thought about it for generations. To gain it, men have borne contempt of generations and crucifixion shown. So to gain the afterlife, men have borne the contempt of generations. So some people who say that the afterlife exists, they've been laughed at by generations. That people have these people have defended their beliefs, but people have laughed at them for it, and some people have even been crucified for their belief in the afterlife. And this is now referring to Jesus Christ, or to the followers of early Christianity who were crucified by the Romans. So people have suffered for their belief in this, for their faith in the afterlife. Faith slips and laughs and rallies, blushes if any see. So faith, this is sometimes something you are absolutely certain that the afterlife exists. So it slips, it goes. Sometimes you don't have any faith, and sometimes the turns of life make you laugh at the idea of faith, and then faith rallies, faith comes back. So this is like a loss of faith. So sometimes you lose faith in the idea of an afterlife, and then you laugh, and then faith comes back. And it's embarrassing if anybody sees that you have you've lost faith even for a while. And maybe it's embarrassing as well to believe in an afterlife, to be to have faith in this, because this is something that it doesn't have evidence. So plucks at a twig of evidence and asks a Vane the way. So you could ask a weather vane the direction to point. You see a tiny piece of evidence and you follow that. You don't see the whole tree, just a tiny twig, a little bit of evidence. Or you ask a weather vane the way. But the point is, a weather vane is always moving, it's pointing in different directions. So you ask different people and you get different answers. And you see a piece of evidence, but it's always contradictory. This is not something you can follow. Much gesture from the pulpit, strong hallelujahs roll. And then you have priests who are standing in the pulpit giving speeches and singing hallelujahs and singing hymns and showing how fervently they believe in the world beyond. But that doesn't make it exist. And then finally she finishes up saying, narcotics cannot still the tooth that nibbles at the soul. So this belief in faith, this is like a toothache that is always eating at the soul, and whatever you do, you can't get rid of this feeling. This is a lovely metaphor here at the end, where there's narcotics are all these different ways. You talk to the priest, you talk to the weather vane, you look at this piece of evidence, you think about this, you think about philosophy, and none of these can stop the twinge, the pain in your tooth that is nibbling at the soul, that your belief that there must be an afterlife, there must be something that exists afterwards. And this is a feeling that can't be suppressed. It's something that is always biting away at the soul, and there's this internal feeling that yes, there must be an afterlife after death, but this is not based on any logic. And she goes through the poem saying that there are different things in favour of it. So it's invisible as music, but as positive as sound. So this afterlife is certain. It's certain that this is something that exists, but it's something that there is no certainty. I think this begs the question of, was Emily Dickinson religious? She certainly went to church, but that doesn't make a person religious. She never explicitly stated that she was a Christian. I think this is part of her transcendentalism, that yes, she believes in religion, but in her own way. And she here is thinking about religion and the afterlife. So, This World is Not Conclusion by Emily Dickinson.